What's it like to live beneath the sea? To be underwater, not just for hours, but for days. Off the coast of Florida, marine biologists are finding out. Creating a home under the sea.
For 3 decades, much of the world has been stargazing, obsessed with reaching new heights in outer space. Meanwhile, closer to home, another universe has remained virtually unknown, the inner space of the world's oceans.
It used to be that if you wanted to study what was happening down there, it would almost be like flying over New York City and dropping a bucket down from an airplane, picking up a few samples, hauling the bucket up and looking in the bucket and trying to figure out what's going on down in New York City. That's basically where oceanography was a few decades ago. Now, instead of throwing the bucket down into this environment, you're able to go down and live there for a while and really understand what's happening.
Though you can't see it, below this buoy off Key Largo, Florida lies the Aquarius underwater habitat. It's the only underwater research station in the world. Almost 6 stories down, scientists from all over come here to do research and find out what life would be like if they were a fish.
Instead of looking up at the sky, you always look out the window and see what the day's like. We don't miss it up there at all on the surface. Seriously, it's wonderful down here.
My name is Greg Stone, and I'm a marine biologist with the New England Aquarium. For the next 8 days, I'm going to be stuck underwater with 5 other guys. On this mission, the only comforts of home will be freeze-dried. Just add water and stir.
It's relatively good. Relatively. very, very carefully chosen words. Relatively. Anyway. Yeah. The truth is coming out now. Scrambled eggs are terrible. Yeah, we eat good.
I'm in Aquarius as part of the first U.S.-Japanese mission, working with my old friends and colleagues Mineo Okamoto and Satoshi Nojima. I first met Mineo when I worked at the Japan Marine Science and Technology Center, which is also where I learned to speak Japanese. The Aquarius is 12 meters long, about the size of a freight car, and just about as comfortable, with a bunk room, a kitchen, laboratory space with lots of electronics, wet porch, and a very small bathroom.
Living and working in such a confined space that you have to coordinate every movement when you're all in the habitat together. For example, if you're standing here and you want to go just 4 feet over there, you sometimes have to stand there for 3 or 4 minutes and wait for someone who's in between you and your destination to finish what they're doing and move out of the way.
The habitat is very narrow. Sometimes we can touch and each other. Yeah. So this is a kind of skinship to understand each other. Good
Skinship. Yeah.
skinship, yes.
We do learn a lot about skinship, with all 6 of us living in such a very confined space.
Tucked around all the rest of the things the habitat needs, these are all the air valves and our life support systems, communication systems. It's really all like a spaceship in that there's a few places where you can work and live and eat, but then all around you is tucked the essentials to keep you going here underwater.
Although sometimes the Aquarius technicians take the spaceship idea just a little too far. Still, it's the same challenge putting people underwater and putting people into outer space. It's all about pressure. The difference is, in outer space, there's no pressure, and underwater you're dealing with a high-pressure environment. Because water is more dense than air, pressure changes rapidly in the ocean. 1 atmosphere for every 10 meters. That means at the depth of Aquarius, we're living at about 3 full atmospheres of pressure. This is the wet porch, part laboratory, part garage, and part entryway. It's the only way in and out of Aquarius. Inside the wet porch is the moon pool. It's like a door on the floor.
And they're actually going out to look for a shark.
People always want to know why water doesn't rush into Aquarius when you've got this gaping hole into the ocean. The reason is that the pressure inside Aquarius is the same as the water pressure outside Aquarius, and that keeps the water from rushing in. It's just like if you take a glass and invert it in a tub of water, you'll always have a little pocket of air at the top. That pocket of air is where we inside Aquarius can live. The beauty of an Aquarius mission is becoming what divers call saturated. It's what happens to our bodies after we live under pressure. Done right, limited saturation doesn't seem to harm the body, but it does have some weird side effects, like making our voices sound strange. And some people feel a little high all the time, like they've just had a glass of wine. The best part about being saturated is that we can dive for up to 6 hours at a time, compared to only about 1 hour if we were diving down from the surface. Picture it this way. It's like there's a ceiling above us through which we can no longer pass. If we do, the gases, which are saturated in our body, could expand too rapidly, restricting blood flow, pinching nerves, and even possibly killing us.
まず一番特徴的だったことは
I'm usually very seasick when I'm on a boat. It is very hard for me to gather data from on board a ship. The amount of time you can safely observe an ecosystem in even 15 or 20 meters of shallow water is severely limited. And when you think about the fact that you have to take a boat out to the site and you may get seasick on the boat, and you have to put on a heavy tank and physically plunge into the water. It's pretty dangerous work.
Okamoto-san is a specialist in saturation diving and coral reef research. While in Florida, he and Nojima-san will be conducting several coral experiments as part of a long-term study. Here, Okamoto-san's using a fluorometer to measure the chlorophyll content inside the coral. Some corals look like plants, others look like rocks, but they're actually neither. Corals are animals. They're oxygen-breathing animals just like you and me. Worldwide, there are more than 6,000 species of both deep water and shallow water corals. Okamoto-san is focusing on the shallow water coral reefs. These reef-building corals survive because of a microscopic plant called zooanthelle. The plant lives inside the coral, kind of like bacteria lives inside the human intestine. It's a symbiotic relationship. The zooanthelle absorbs the coral's carbon dioxide and also provides it with oxygen and nutrients. Without this life-sustaining plant, coral is weakened and turns white. It's a phenomenon called coral bleaching.
If you were to go to a national park in any country throughout the world, someplace on land where there's trees and there's wildlife, and you went into that park and you found all the trees were dying, you'd be terribly alarmed at that. Well, that's what's happening in the ocean right now. But the problem is it's hard to see it. People would be much more alarmed if they could see the effects of what's happening in the ocean, like you can see effects which are happening on land.
Worldwide, coral bleaching is on the rise. And many scientists believe that we are in the middle of the largest coral bleaching event in history. How will this coral bleaching affect the oceans? No one really knows, but the data we gather from this Aquarius mission may help answer that question. During this Aquarius mission, we'll conduct several experiments on the importance of coral to the ocean. Nojima-san begins by taking an inventory of the more than 30 species of coral found around the Aquarius. Star coral, porous coral, brain coral, and Stokes star coral. After Nojima-san's morning photo session, we are called back to the habitat to receive a visitor from the surface, from the One Atmosphere people. It's our friendly Aquarius physician. After spending so many hours in the water day after day, I've developed an ear infection.
Does that hurt to do that? No. That hurts to do that.
Our health and our medical fitness is very carefully watched in Aquarius, because if something serious happened, we'd have to decompress for 17 hours before we could get to a hospital.
So the only thing I can say is I will look in your ears when we get you out of the water tomorrow. All right. But right now, I don't see any, the typical sign.
But in this case, the doctor gives me the A-OK, and I'm able to head out on a night dive with my friend and colleague from the New England Aquarium, Ken Mallory. One of my favorite times on the reef is nighttime. And one of the great things about saturation diving is you can experience the transition from daylight into the evening. I like to swim out just before sunset, find a wonderful place in the reef area, and just sit down and watch. After the sun finally sets, all these new animals come out and begin scurrying around the reef looking for food, exhibiting new and fascinating nighttime behaviors. And you can sit there for 4, 5, even 6 hours. The next morning, Okamoto-san and Nojima-san begin the second part of their experiment. For it, they will use a respirometer, which is just what it sounds like. It's a device that measures the respiration of the coral and the zooanthellae, the exchanges of the oxygen and the carbon dioxide.
We put the coral inside a dome and have another dome with no coral inside. And we watch how the composition of water changes with the coral in it. This is one way we measure respiration over a short period of time. Along with all other tests, we are also keeping track of environmental factors such as water temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen levels, and the intensity of the light. We track this at 20 to 30-minute intervals, and so are able to measure how much the coral breathes.
Each day during the Aquarius mission, we feel more and more at home on the seafloor. We're the 3 atmosphere people. We develop a strong sense of community amongst ourselves. Then there's the One Atmosphere people at the surface, who are always watching us through the video cameras. We actually sort of feel like we're on display, but they're looking after our best interests and are trying to make sure no aquanauts get into trouble.
If any system were to fail, there's always a backup. There's always someone here watching the information displayed from the buoy and the habitat, watching the video feed. The upper left is the wet porch camera. which tends to get a little condensation in the lens because it's a very humid area. To the right of that is what we call fish cam, which shoots underneath the habitat, and the lower left is the main lock of the habitat. That's where the aquanauts eat and do a lot of their work, and that's probably our best picture on the interior. And then the science station is a live video feed from a computer that is hardwired. I can select each image and maximize it if there's something going on.
Having set up the respirometers, Okamoto-san and Ojima-san prepare to spend a sleepless night monitoring their experiment with video cameras from inside Aquarius. How is your research going?
What we are measuring now is how cold system takes the light and transforms it into energy.
Ah, interesting.
All the time, 24 hours, I don't sleep.
By now, we're feeling part of this watery world, enchanted by the amazing animals that live outside, like the turtles, acclimated to the reef almost like the schools of fish that we find all around us, and even our special friends, the yellow grunts that live just underneath Aquarius, and of course, the friendly barracuda that lives just to the south.
There was a time recently where we thought robots could do everything. We've now discovered that they can't handle everything. You need to get a person down there. The person has eyes that can observe things that no camera can observe. The person has one of the planet's best onboard computers, the human brain, to observe and analyze information while you're on the site. If you've always wanted to go into space and become an astronaut, well, now you can become a marine biologist and become an aquanaut. And the adventure, the enthusiasm, the potential for enormous new discoveries lies right in your backyard under the sea.
Late that night, Okamoto-san led us out to check on his experiment outside Aquarius. This is the first time that Okamoto-san and Ojima-san have been able to observe coral respiration around the clock from underwater.
We are learning that the strength of the sun affects the respiration of the coral. If it is afternoon, the oxygen level in the water increases. At night, the respiration slows down and the oxygen level decreases.
What's surprising to most people is that the ocean produces most of the oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere. In a way, the oceans are the lungs of the planet, producing and exchanging gases and making the air breathable for all of us. This is one of the reasons we're studying the coral reefs around Aquarius, to learn more about this system. It's been 7 full days now living in the deep blue. You'd think by now we'd know our way around, but the water can get kind of murky sometimes, and it's easy to get lost. Especially if something unexpected happens, like your face mask comes off. That's why I've come to rely on all the guidelines the Aquarius has around it. Each line has arrows on it, so that you can actually feel your way with your fingers and it leads you back to safety, back to the mother ship. On our last full day underwater, Okamoto-san, the tireless wonder, squeezes in one last experiment. We're joined by 2 additional members of the Japanese team, but because they're not saturated, they will only have about an hour underwater before they must return to the surface.
We brought along what is called a micro-boring machine. We make a very small hole in the coral and take a core sample. The drill is used to extract a long tube from the coral.
Though it sounds painful, this procedure does not harm the coral colony.
We wanted to find out what corals of the past were like. By examining the age and the chemical composition of this core, we can detect changes in the coral's growth and fluctuations of water temperatures of the past.
You can think of a core sample as being like the rings of a tree trunk. By analyzing the core, we can figure out changes in water temperature over time. During the past decade, the oceans have been getting warmer. Okamoto and other scientists believe this increased temperature is one of the main causes of increased coral bleaching.
We humans can somehow understand that over a period of 50 years or so, the water is getting warmer. But we cannot really experience the change. Coral, on the other hand, exhibits changes. We can see the increase in temperature is having a great effect on the coral because it got bleached and died.
The current epidemic of coral bleaching may ultimately have a domino effect. Coral is the foundation for all the other fish and plants that live on the reef. Preventing further coral bleaching is one of the keys to preserving the entire reef ecosystem. We get to know each other pretty well living in Aquarius, and I'm always impressed by how hard Okamoto-san works. He's either diving or fixing his gear or working on the computer. Hey, a computer game? Our time underwater has come to an end. We must all go back to the surface. None of us want to. We love it down here. But the decompression begins. It will take 17 hours.
Okay, 5 minutes to Ano 2.
The first hour, we lay in our bunk and breathe pure oxygen. This helps leach the nitrogen out of our tissue and blood. Then it'll be another 16 hours, while the technicians slowly reduce the pressure and return Aquarius and our bodies back to 1 atmosphere of pressure.
As you can see, we're almost back at the surface, but we're still underwater. Aquarius is designed as a decompression chamber, so we can actually change the pressure back to the surface while we're inside, which enables us to actually go through the full decompression here, and my voice is back to normal now. The pressure now is just about at the surface, and we give it about another hour at the surface here to make sure there is no decompression problems with anybody, and then the boat will come out and pick us up.
The mission is now complete, and what a fantastic and unique week this has been for me. It's made me realize that this is the first time in human history, this century, when we've actually broken the space barrier, we've sent people into space, and we've broken the ocean barrier. We've sent people down into the ocean to live there and work there. and begin to experience ocean life and ocean animals on their terms. What a fantastic opportunity. Back home, I work in an aquarium. And in an aquarium, we bring fish into the building with water, filters, rocks and substrate, everything they need to live. We put them behind glass and we watch them. Here, we've brought everything I need to live to the seafloor: air, water, and food. One day, as I sat at the table inside Aquarius, looking out the beautiful big porthole, some fish swam by. They actually stopped just outside the porthole and looked at me, and then swam on. Finally, I realized that the watcher has become the watched.